Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Happy Monday. Welcome back to the World Championship Series of America. This is the Challenger League. We just finished up with the Premier League last week. Of course, I'm Axel Toss, joined by Axlav. And I was on vacation last week, so huge thanks to Sham2 and, of course, Rotterdam for filling in. They did a great job. You actually solo casted a couple matches, too. So good job to you, Nick. You're a good guy.
Thank you, sir. Of course, we will be back with the Premier League round of 16 next week. But this week is going to be kicking off the Challenger Division. And the way the Challenger Division works is a bracket stage. Some players do very well in the bracket stage. They join the Premier Division. And then if they lose in the bracket stage, they have to play in the group stage, kind of similar to the up and downs from the GSL. Of course, all this week is going to be the first round of that bracket stage.
Exactly. So, you know, the point here is you're going to have a lot of chances. If you're in Challenger League, you're going to have, you can lose a few times and still make it out of your group, still make it into, Premier League or into Challenger League. But I think only 8 players actually drop out of the entire Challenger League, which get filled in through qualifiers later on. So, what you need to remember is you got to win. I mean, winning is obviously what you want to do. This is Starcraft 2. That's pretty intuitive, but that's what we're going to be doing today. We're going to be covering the first round of the bracket stage, all these best of 3. TheOgnis versus JaeDong, and there's a little bit of a story that hit an hour ago. I messaged TheOgnis, and I'm like, hey, are you going to be JaeDong? And he's like, check my Twitter in 5 minutes. So I kept hitting refresh on his Twitter, and you guys need to go check his Twitter. It's at TheOgnis. He combined the T's because he's on Root, and TheOgnis is the T's in the middle. Go check his Twitter. It's pretty hilarious. I don't think a description from me would do it justice, but he's representing the USA Today.
That's
Not
right.
the newspaper, Nick. I know you're confused.
Of course, a great player. He's had a lot of
Yeah.
experience. He's one of the few North American players who's really devoted their lives to the game, taking some time off to just focus exclusively on StarCraft. So I have a lot of high hopes for how well he'll do. Of course, he's up against JaeDong, who's basically a living legend in Brood War. JaeDong is such a monster. Him and Flash are two of the most well-recognized names from Brood War. He's won 9 major championship events in Brood War. He hasn't quite had that same level of success in StarCraft 2 yet, but he's a staple for EGTL and the Pro League, and he's looking to make his big footprint in the individual leagues here in WCS America.
Absolutely. JaeDong is a name that everyone should fear. He has a ridiculous amount of legacy, not only in StarCraft 2, but of course in StarCraft, where most people know him as the Tyrant. And it's going to be JaeDong versus TheOgnis. I'm asking the players if they're ready. TheOgnis says he is ready, so we're waiting on a response from JaeDong. Again, we are live here, so make sure you get on Twitter, get on Team Liquid, get on Reddit. Tell people this is going on, because I think it's doable. I think it's doable for TheOgnis. A lot of people are going to say, all right, JaeDong 2-0. But remember the first game we casted in Season 1 of the World Championship Series of America, Mr. Axlife. Do you remember that game?
I do. That was a pretty crazy game. That was TheOgnis?
No.
No?
No, it was from the qualifier. Remember? Come on.
Oh,
yes.
Looking back that far, that was
the very first game.
JaeDong versus. I played the guy in ladder. Right after that, I played him in ladder. It was a Zerg, not no creativity.
Everyone's shouting at the screen. Axlife, it is.
It was a young Zerg player from America.
Scooby-Dooby-Doo, where are you?
Nah, I didn't see Scooby-Doo. I'm sorry, I didn't neglect the full childhood.
Mystery.
Mystery, that's what it was. And Mystery won the first game, then lost the next 2, unfortunately.
Yeah, but Both players have said they're ready, and we are into the game. This is game one of a best of three to determine who's going to move on in the Challenger League. A very important match we have in our hands. At the top right-hand location, we have the Blue Zerg player from Team Evil Geniuses. He is JaeDong. And of course, his opponent in the bottom left-hand location, the red Terran player representing Team Root Gaming and the United States of America. In the color red, he is TheOgnis.
Here's the question. Will those delaying tactics of JaeDong work against TheOgnis? Is it going to throw him off his game a bit, the fact that he had to wait in the lobby for about 3 to 4 minutes?
You know, the nerves there are,
yeah.
I would expect to be pretty big. Like, you can obviously directly relate to that. You've been in that type of situation before where you're waiting in the lobby. I don't know what you're waiting for, but, you know, perhaps the other player, you know, perhaps your keyboard, you're finalizing some settings. But, you know, talk about your experiences with that, Mr. Xlev.
So it is interesting. What can happen is you're kind of psyched up and mentally ready for the game to go. Your adrenaline's at like this, not like spiked, but your body's kind of ready to just like be right in the zone. Your instincts are there.
Yes.
But then if you sit around and do nothing for 4 minutes, that feeling can kind of leave you, and you can kind of get a little more lethargic. You can kind of be thrown off your Honda barracks right after this next Marine comes out.
Very standard opening here from TheOgnis. Standard for the matchup, not necessarily against his opponent, because again, you know, we're talking about a game one, right? A game one where you have the ability to throw in some crazy cheese type play. You have the ability to try to take your opponent off guard because it's not necessarily a deciding game. So a lot of players will decide to do something like that. And we're seeing JaeDong put down a Roach Horn. Speed is about to finish. He's keeping guys on gas here.
TheOgnis, though, look at this SCV patrolling at JaeDong's third base. JaeDong's so good, he's going to spot it, but the whole goal here is, I mean, if that wasn't spotted for another minute or so, TheOgnis would have known for sure it's roaches. As it is, I think you can be fairly confident it's likely to be roaches, because 2-hatch tech builds aren't very common on Daybreak in Zerg vs. Terran. It's pretty rare. There are, you know, some Zergs will tech to mutas or whatever off 2-hatch on other maps, but Daybreak, it's rare. So coming back here and again see no 3rd hatch. Oh, he didn't quite get back there.
Yeah,
but
the speed kicked in on the link, so he was able to chase him.
He didn't know at about the 5:45 mark there was no 3rd hatch even started. And that's late enough that he has to be pretty confident there's at least some type of aggression coming at him.
counter aggression, but we see some drones mixed in there, starting up with the +1 missile attack. So it looks like he wants to stick with that type of composition as far as, he's not researching melee right now, right? So it's not like he's going for that mass-ling play. So a very interesting decision being made there, and his third is just now going out there to be planted down, putting 4 gases in his maiden natural. Layer's already done too.
This makes it look like JaeDong wants to do a secondary timing, perhaps with Roach speed and +1,
Yeah.
and maybe another 2 to 3 minutes. So that's something that TheOgnis actually is going to have to look out for. Oh, not going to be able to quite get that hatchery. Of course, he doesn't want to send the Marauders across the map because he knows JaeDong has Zergling speed. A small force of Marauders who just get surrounded and torn to pieces. So very smart that he's keeping those back. I think one thing that's going to go well for TheOgnis is he actually got his second and third barracks before the 2 E-base. And normally that's not what Tyrion wants to do because you really want to get ahead in those upgrades. But against a Zerg player who's looking for a speed Roach timing is what it looks like JaeDong's probably going to go for here. Having all those extra Marines being produced that much earlier can make a big difference.
So what is TheOgnis going to be looking for here? Like, what does he need to do to be able
If your opponent positions well, it's hard to end a game early with Roach Hydra. And in the late game, when Bio gets 3-3 and a high medevac count, you really need to add something else into your army.
which is where Vipers could be an option. Blinding Cloud can be decent.
Ooh, medevacs, TheOgnis, you gotta be a little more careful.
Every unit is so important. Well, he is going to identify his opponent's unit composition, so he should have no doubts whatsoever. And I agree with your point. I think creep spread is going to be very important here for JaeDong as well. Roach Hydra already isn't that mobile of a composition. If you can get that creep spread out and make it a little bit more mobile than it originally is, that can definitely help a lot.
One thing that actually really makes a lot of sense for JaeDong's unit choice is the fact that JaeDong is a multitasking expert. While TheOgnis loves a straightforward macro game, the more directions the attention is drifted, the more favorable it's going to be for JaeDong, as that's really his zone. So the standard counter to this is heavy drop play, but JaeDong's probably really comfortable. I mean, we can see there how easily he dealt with that drop. I think he's got to be very comfortable in this multitasking situation.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit interesting there that TheOgnis only sent 1 drop. Of course, he lost another medevac, so that might have had something to do with it, where, originally he could pick up 2 medevacs and send 1 to the mains and 1 to the third and really try to spread JaeDong out apart, really test that unit composition. But since he lost that earlier medevac, maybe that's kind of felt there. He's only able to drop in the main base, and JaeDong's going to be able to easily deal with that. Meanwhile, we see
It is. Of course, the Marine's faster than Hydras. Now some reinforcements for JaeDong come in, but the Marine should be fine just backing away to that siege tank line.
Yeah. I would move those up a little bit. That's exactly what TheOgnis is going to do. I mean, once TheOgnis can set up these four bases, it's much easier to defend his bases behind them, unless, of course, drops are starting to be utilized. Of course, speaking of drops, there is one at the third. Going to get cleaned up. But this middle base is a nice pivot location. You go attack the south, attack the north. We saw this in Idra versus Polt. We saw Polt do a great job utilizing that point and just trying to deny those bases from Idra. So we'll have to see if TheOgnis decides to go for a similar strategy.
He was thinking about pushing along the bottom, but very intelligently, he left the Marine on the top when he saw JaeDong going for that counter. His army was there. JaeDong's army looks too small to deal with this.
Yeah, those are Stim Marines and Rogers. He's going to scan. He's going to be patient, take down some creep. And not too many medevacs in this composition, only 3, and they don't have a lot of energy. So TheOgnis has to be careful in that regard. JaeDong sees all of this, but this is another one of those situations on Daybreak where it's going to be hard to engage if the Terran player controls properly, positions properly, sieging up those tanks on the high ground. JaeDong thought about going for it, but I don't think that's the best idea because that's a lot of DPS coming out of this Terran army. Nothing but minerals. He's going to start getting excess gas here because of his unit composition choice. And now I'm wondering, all right, where's that transition into the Ultras? We have just now +1 melee attacks being added on here from JaeDong, still making Hydras. So there's still going to be a good amount of time before those units can come out onto the field.
Of course, JaeDong needs units that produce quickly as there's so much of a threat to his 4th base, taking out a few medevacs. I think TheOgnis needs to wait for his bio to grow just a little bit bigger and then launch another attack. He could perhaps even wait till he maxes out, but no, he's going to go right now with only 2 siege tanks, a small bio force.
Don't overextend.
I think he may be overextending. There's a lot of creep here.
All right, JaeDong turning around. The blinding cloud's going down. The Marines are just going to go even further forward, but you got to stay within that tank range, and you got to not overextend. Keep in mind, 3-3 is in play here for TheOgnis. He's going to be happy with his upgrade advantage because the 3 Carapace is just now on the way here for JaeDong. And now these Hydras aren't going to be enough. This hatchery is definitely going to be vulnerable. Evo Chamber getting taken down. TheOgnis taking a base at the top left-hand side of the map. He's playing this pretty darn well.
He is. JaeDong has to go up that 4th base. JaeDong needs those infestors to come out on the field. 5 are being produced. Muddy Fungos are his way back in the game, of course. He has that bottom right base, so he's still in an okay position with 4 bases if he can take a really strong engagement. But he's down